You'd think that elections would give us answers, that as we put our votes to the test, we extend the rights of our democracy and our ability and power as a collective people, that we'd finally have the outcomes that we wanted, some sort of end to the mystery. But now that another election has come to an end, in America right now, we just are left with more questions than answers. Let's be straight up about this. It's so confusing watching some states be able to count their votes the night of the election. Other states, it take days. And then they say with Democrats that it could take a week to count their votes, but that's only if they don't win unilaterally on the night of election. If they win, then we just stop the vote that night. So it's kind of strange. It's like we find more votes if they don't win, but if they win, then the votes are done. I get tired of it. And the White House has assured us time and time again that the 2020 election was the safest, the most secure election ever. Joe Biden actually said legitimately that it's probably the most secure election in the history of the country. And if that were the case, then why is America's confidence in our election system at an all-time low? Perhaps it has something to do with malfunctioning voting machines like we saw in Maricopa County, sketchy mail-in ballots, and delayed results that sometimes take weeks to be finalized. It shouldn't be like that in a developed country. You shouldn't have a system where it takes weeks to count your vote. It doesn't make sense. Literally, I can now get verified more easily on Twitter for $8 that I can probably cast a vote or get it verified. It's a strange world we're living in. Things are flipping. This phenomenon of chaotic elections is new. It actually didn't used to be like this in the United States because our elections were never perfect. But they were also never a complete mess like this, where we don't even know who won on the night of election and we're confused on what's happening for weeks on end. On Tuesday, the nation bore witness to another chaotic election. All across the country, the same issues that were present in 2020 were suddenly cropping up again. It's like the same counties, the same cities, the same states. In Maricopa County, Arizona, for example, voting machines crashed completely. They had to be counted by hand, the votes that is. And as lines of voters grew longer and longer, the RNC sued to extend voting by 2 hours. Yeah. I feel like I trust Indian food, like at a curry from a sketchy business that's cash only in downtown LA more than I trust Maricopa voting machines. Curiously, though, that suit was denied by a judge because we wouldn't want to secure our elections when we have questions to be answered. Keep in mind, though, that the person in charge of this election is the Democratic Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, who's running for election. Now, Hobbs just so happens to be the one running against Republican Kari Lake in a contentious vote. This is who voters were likely disenfranchised by today. Meanwhile, the Justice Department announced that they would be sending federal election monitors to 24 states. Remember that elections are to be overseen and operated by the states. So it should kind of alarm you because the federal government doesn't have any position to be doing things like this. Why is the Biden administration sending election monitors to states to see if their elections are run effectively? Either A, the states aren't working correctly, or B, the federal government is acting in a corrupt manner. Or C, it's probably both. So what exactly were these election monitors supposed to be doing precisely? Now, Florida was wise enough to take a stand against this, telling them to stay the hell out of the polls. They're like, get the hell out of here. They'll take Cubans on boats, I guess, but not federal officials in black SUVs. And likewise, Missouri described these actions as intimidating and extremely inappropriate. We know that there's a deeply concerning and unethical electioneering happening in many cities around the nation. Places like Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Milwaukee have massive Democratic political machines. These operations use legal loopholes to stuff the ballots by harvesting votes, which we know is illegal in states like Texas, but for some reason in California, it's totally okay. And then the Republicans don't do it. The Democrats do it. They collect the votes after the voting day, and they take all the mail-in and absentee ballots, and then they flip the election towards their candidate. We saw that directly in some districts, especially in Orange County. Now, in a single day, an effective team of canvassers can get thousands of votes for their candidate. Just one neighborhood. In just one neighborhood, they can get thousands of votes. Now, do you think there's a similar operation happening in the rural, especially the white areas of Pennsylvania? No, of course not. Because somehow I doubt that in the weeks and months leading up to this midterm, the White House and the media were constantly saying that the results of this election might not be clear on election night. It sounded a lot like they were preparing us to be disappointed. Why would the media and the government be so adamant that the results of the election would likely change after a few days? ABC News, of all places. ABC stands for Always Bullcrap. They said that we should look for a contentious week, where it would look like Republicans are winning on the night of the election, but then the elections would get flipped probably to Democrats because of vote drops. Isn't that a little bit strange to basically say that the guy that looks like he won probably won't? And remember that the same line was repeated ad nauseum before the 2020 election. And then there are statistical anomalies that really get you scratching your head. Much of these we can't even talk about on YouTube because it often results in getting censored, which is a reminder to follow us at ElijahSchaefer.locals.com. We're a locals community. You get the fully offensive segment after the show, which is stuff we can't talk about here. We're going to talk about some election stuff. It's very important that we actually get that out in the open, but also you get the live chat, and it supports a demonetized channel. We were demonetized, remember, for reporting on January 6th. It kind of sucks that politically you get targeted in this country for doing your damn job. All I can say, though, is that I look into the voter turnout in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, and recently we have been hearing a lot about how voting and democracy are so integral to the American identity. If that were the case, why is it such a disaster every election day? In Europe, these type of issues hardly seem to happen at all. Elections there are run extremely smoothly when compared to ours, despite being significantly more complex with dozens of parties and candidates all vying for a piece of the pie. It seems like in the UK, we just know Boris Johnson is out. We don't hear about weeks and weeks of contention. Now, what's their secret? Well, many of these nations have voter ID laws on the books. France, for example, requires a proof of address and nationally when you go to vote, or nationality, I should say. Many of these countries also have very stringent regulations on voting early or by mail, and even if they allow it, they have robust systems to ensure it is counted properly. So why is our system, the American system, so dysfunctional? Aren't we supposed to be the pillar of democracy that we say all around the world? Fair and free elections. Why is there such little transparency and security when it comes to the counting of votes? Clearly, a large segment of the country is legitimately concerned that our elections are not being counted fairly. You would think that these concerns would be met with reassuring evidence that everything is kosher, but instead they're met with accusations of being anti-democratic, fascist, or were censored entirely. We just want to see some accountability that things are being done properly, with no funny business at all. Now, speaking of accountability, now that Republicans may be on the verge of taking control of the House, it's time to hold their feet to the fire on their campaign promises. In fact, I think we are in control of the House. It's just we're not determining it like all the other election discrepancies. For example, many Republicans promised to stop sending aid to Ukraine. I doubt that'll happen, but we're hoping. And the U.S. has essentially been bankrolling that war and prolonging it in a process. I saw some Republican governors with "I stand with Ukraine" in their Twitter banners. Lame. We expect that aid to now stop as soon as possible. And we also expect them to at least try getting our southern border under control. They need to get in the way of this administration. The January 6th Commission, all of that garbage, with all of it being said, the Great Red Wave of 2022 did not materialize. Okay? It just didn't. And you can point to suspicious stuff here and there, but ultimately Republicans lacked candidates who could go out there and fight on the issues that matter. And for as long as we've heard that the economy will bring out the voters, that it's the economy, stupid, well, clearly, you dumb idiot, I just censored myself, that isn't the case anymore. Our economy is literally a dumpster fire with the worst inflation since the 1970s, and yet managed to only create a red droplet. McConnell, McCarthy, and the rest of the GOP establishment have miscalculated. People don't want to vote for a candidate who will only fight to slightly adjust the tax rate. They want someone who will fight for so much more. Is it about time that we had some real candidates who will take a stand on immigration, on voter fraud, on the LGBT degenerate filth that's being prolonged and pushed upon our kids? They're chopping their balls off. What about the anti-white racism that even when you work in establishment right-wing media, they don't want you talking about? This defines America. This is the reality. This is what people are afraid of talking about. Where is the candidate with the balls to get up and actually fight? Where is the candidate that is going to get on the stage and just let it all out there like Trump used to and say they're sending their worst, they are rapists? Sorry, but none of the GOP's candidates this year have been more close to that at all. makes me upset. If anything, yesterday should have been a wake-up call to the Republican establishment. It should have been stated loud and clear that people are tired of the status quo. It should have been stated that we are not going to turn out for your boring-ass candidate with no charisma and no balls. It should have stated that not only are we going to defeat the left by getting in the trenches and fighting this culture war head-on to the end, to blood, sweat, and tears. Make no mistake, you know we're losing this nation. The society that your ancestors died to build is being intentionally ripped apart. We as the right need to get serious. Every day the situation is getting worse as millions of people across our border and as thousands of new leftists are indoctrinated in our education system. We are facing the twilight of our country, and you want to argue about taxes? The nation is on the line and we have to go vote for Mehmet Oz. It's ridiculous. The GOP is a party of controlled opposition. It exists merely to pretend to be the other side. And in reality, the left just gets to do whatever they want. Things are going to get worse for America before they get better. You and your family will feel financial, emotional, and spiritual pain. It is time that we conservatives, that we right-wing libertarians, people who love this country, demand that things change within our party and outside of it. It's time we demand our country back. Instead of just asking nicely, it's time we start looking towards 2024, and we should look at it as our last chance to save America, because it'll most likely be our last chance. And we know most importantly that in the midst of this, we have to take control of what we can. We know that we are losing our money left and right, that our country is bleeding cash in our absolutely out of control budget. The dollar has lost over 40% of its value in the last several decades. We know that people who are investing in crypto, it's going sideways, and nobody knows what to do as 401ks are dropping and the stock market is losing trillions of dollars under Joe Biden. It's messed up. Those that have invested in gold and silver have hedged for their future against these changing markets and have actually put their investment into something that has lasted the test of time. My friends at Goldco want to help you to save the money that you've worked hard to keep. They want you to invest the money that you've put away in your retirement and savings, that money in your bank account, into something that has gone up in value over the last decades. Check out what gold and silver can do for you right now by calling my friends at Goldco, who have a special offer for you right now at 855-242-4758. That's 855-242-4758. Call them or click the link in the description. You can fill out the form, you can get a hold of them, and you can find out how to protect your savings and retirement. And check this out. For the slightly offensive backers, if you call 855-242-4758 today, you can find out right now how to get up to $10,000 of free silver. It's an amazing deal. Do not miss it. If you've been hearing them reaching out to you and you've been waiting to make the jump, call them today at 855-242-4758. Invest in gold and silver. Do not wait until it's too late. Protect your retirement and savings with my friends at Goldco. Check out the link in the description or call them, the link in the description, and also the Chiron on the screen.